It's great to have you here at Abu Dhabi Global Healthcare Week. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I want you to walk me through what is the single greatest challenge in your mind to the evolution of how organizations like the FDA, for example, approve the drugs that people use every day.
Sure. So look, this is really a historic time with FDA Modernization Act 2.0 accepted into law, and in surprising succession now FDA Modernization Act 3.0 on the floor of the House with strong bipartisan support, with the 3.0 putting additional pressure on the FDA, can be really put into action. So we're really living within a revolution as we speak of the 100 years that have gone previously of drugs being extremely ineffective in the process of developing and being relying on ineffective animal testing, to these new technologies, AI, organ on chip, stem cell, that are signifying the way forward.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because obviously post-COVID-19, there are a lot of questions about vaccines. There are a lot of questions about the role that regulators, policymakers, and big pharma play.
Yeah. Well, COVID-19 was also a turning point in the realization that drugs and vaccines can and should be developed much faster. It used to be that people thought of the vaccine as something that's a 10-year process, and here it was done in a year. It's also something that brought to the foreground inclusiveness and equity. The notion that drugs and vaccines should be developed for everyone. People don't know this, but currently drugs are developed for a portion of the population. Women are represented in less than 50% of clinical trials. Minorities are represented in less than 11% of clinical trials. Quris AI is a platform that allows to transform this by including a much larger population. Abu Dhabi and UAE are really in a wonderful position to offer advanced regulation, high collaboration, so that drugs can be developed for different ethnic groups, and with a focus on longevity as well. Because a lot of this is about personalized medicine and longevity, and how to not just develop drugs faster, but also find out who they're good for and prolong life doing that.
One of the concerns, obviously, if you're pushing things to market more quickly, is the safety concern.
Yes.
How do you find ways to address a myriad of global problems, whether it be aging, cancer, another pandemic, while at the same time being able to keep people safe?
Well, that's been the charter of Quris AI, really. So I'm biased that I founded the company out of the understanding that drugs are not sufficiently safe and not sufficiently personalized, and the technologies are now emerging in order to do a better job at that. So by testing drugs, not just whether you're a pharma or an individual.
Being able to tailor to a genome.
Yes. How about testing your drugs before you pop them in your mouth? Testing them on a mini-me, on a miniaturized version of you, using AI to make sure that
the reactions will be?
Yes. The drugs and the supplements that you're taking are actually suited for you and in the right dose that's specific for you.
What about women? Because it's interesting, if you look back to the 1950s and 60s, this sort of discovery by the advertising agents that if they targeted women, they would sell a heck of a lot more products. In your mind, now that we're talking less about healthcare and more about long-term health, how will that change that dynamic? In your mind, do you think that women will become much more of a focus?
I've no doubt about it. We just spoke about the fact that women were not even represented sufficiently in clinical trials. So being able to address women's needs, being able to address the needs of different ethnic groups and of specific individuals is really in a transformation. And so platforms that can do that can harness the power of machine learning, of AI on the one hand, and of stem cell and organ on chip, we call it patient on chip, to really test drugs on a miniaturized version of an individual, goes a long way to developing safer drugs faster.
In your mind, how does this best place a country like the UAE, which has traditionally been an incubator for innovation?
Well, we've really been surprised and are enthusiasts of what we see here in the UAE. There is the advanced thinking regulator, a strong investor group, and a group of organizations at Quris were in dialogue to collaborate with the Abu Dhabi Stem Cell Center, NRL, Cleveland Clinic, IHL. There's a bunch of groups here that working together create a vibrant ecosystem that under the DOH leadership is showing the way, and I think smaller countries like UAE have a historic opportunity here to become really world leaders simply by creating the regulatory conditions that see a revolution recognize a revolution when they see it, and to offer the regulatory framework that allows companies like Quris AI to come and make this a home for us, another office and subsidiary.
How do you see this breaking up the traditional pharmaceutical industry?
Well, we're in dialogue and collaboration with 8 of the top 10 pharma companies in the world right now. So there's a lot of attention to to these new technologies. Pharma companies have always moved slowly, and that's what they do. But there's great interaction these days between young technology companies like us and large pharma companies, which are basically saying, look, your technology and our know-how and data, together we can make this work, and we realize that we need to make it work.
And what would you like to see then from the policymakers? What's their role?
Policymakers are finally listening to what scientists have been saying for many years. Mice are not men. Animal testing is a terrible proxy for the human body. We're all different from each other, and the regulator needs to catch up with where science has been for a while now, of updating how drugs are developed so that they're more personalized, safer, and developed faster, embracing these new technologies. It's not easy, it doesn't happen on a dime, but it is happening in an accelerated pace, and the UAE has an important role to play in that.
It's great to have you here at Abu Dhabi Global Healthcare Week. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Pleasure.